Bonsai World. Patricia, O'Connor, and Frida, Reba, Darcy here. Trying to dodge and weave and do the limbo as I weave my way into set. Oh, today on the bonsai balcony. Let's see. First of all, I don't know. This is my sidekick, Frida, Reba, Darcy. I hope you can see Frida. You can probably see the little pine tree seedlings in front of me. That's what today's show was going to be about. I'm just going to start on this end, and I'm going to wire up a few of these little seedlings. These are Japanese black pines. These guys, where'd we get all these, Patricia? Well, we started these in our kitchen from seed. I bought the seeds from a vendor who frequents Facebook auction, bonsai auction frequently, and I've seen them sell quite a few different types of seeds, and they offer up Japanese black pines, and you just get a baggie full, not full, it's not a Ziploc baggie full of seeds, but probably a couple of hundred seeds. This is roughly about 30 pines and weaves, and I've got another 20 or so up there on the top shelf of my little baker's rack. So this proved to be a pretty easy way to get started with some Japanese black pines, and these guys are going in these little containers here, which I rescued from the dumpster at work. These were, according to the tag, these were 2.5 inch succulents at one point. Yeah, well, that's what it said. But now there are little Japanese black pines in these pots, and these guys are growing in perlite. They've been doing a good job on perlite. I bought a really big bag of this whenever it came into the store. I went, wow, that's a lifetime supply of perlite. I hope I like it. So far, like, I hope I like it. It's a big old huge pillow of perlite, and it almost looked like beanbag furniture from the 70s or 80s, whenever that was. So what you see me doing is just kind of clearing away some of the weeds. Not going to clear away any roots escaping out of the pot. It looks like I'll probably cut the top off this summer. Did a little candle cut. I would do this. There's candle cutting, which we do as a bonsai procedure, and then there's just like cutting the top off something to keep it from growing too tall. The difference being, this is not in a bonsai pot. So right now we're not exactly restricting the roots, and since we're not restricting the roots, the main reason for cutting the candles would kind of be offset by the fact that it can store as much energy as it wants. So we're not necessarily cutting candles to make our needles smaller. Now, here's what we're going to do today. If I were a professional bonsai person, I would have probably be almost done. Pat's a little gabby, but I would probably almost be done with this by now. But the idea is that we just take one of these wires that I've pre-cut, and we're going to stab it down. Oh, here's a little hint. Let's start from the bottom, because in the end, I'm gonna want this wire to in the end, I'm gonna want this wire to attach to the bottom here. Those roots are a bit thick, like putting a soft nail into a heavy piece of wood. I see the whole map. There we go. Ooh. Okay. Would have preferred that to have come up a little closer to the tree, but that, we'll live with that. That's okay. You can see the difference that the little bit of difficulty that I had there trying to get this piece of wire to come up over here where I would have wanted it. I went in at the angle, aiming right for that, but as it found roots and did hit pieces of substrate head on, it found its path of least resistance and ended up going up down the side. Now, imagine I were going from the top and trying to hit this hole, or trying to poke a hole in the bottom. Combine that with trying to make a YouTube video, and we would all be here for a long time waiting for a wire to come out. It was one of our Ooh. So the idea here is to start as low as possible. In fact, I want to go lower still. These are some very rather healthy looking little Japanese black pines. This one is starting to look a little woody already in the trunk. If I'm not worried about it. Also, this is aluminum wire, and the idea is, well, one idea is we're not going to wire down our needles. If you see yourself about to wire some needles, move something so that you don't wire the needles, and if you don't see a way around it, then pluck the needles, because once you wire them down, they're not helping the tree, and they're a burden. So probably better to pluck them and make a room for your wire than wire down your needles. That's kind of what I was taught. Okay. And to that end, I have to clear out a little bit right here to make room for my needles. This would also be the time that I would go through and weed everything, make sure everything was good and weeded if I hadn't already done that. I think for the most part that already happened a couple of days ago. There's some buds in here, so I'll let those go. We don't have a design in mind for this times all the rest of them. Sounds like the youngins are having a good time at the pool. It is a beautiful day here in Alameda. It started out a little cloudy. Frida and I are enjoying our weekend so far. We're enjoying our weekend so far. Ooh. All right, now, so what our job is to now do is to put some motion in this tree. This is our 1-year-old seedling, and we're are probably not supposed to just really go too nuts as far as some design aesthetic at this stage in the game. Our main goal is to get some pretty cool motion in this tree going, and start that early. And you see me putting some emphasis on this bend right here. I want to make sure that as this trunk comes out of the ground, it doesn't come out of the ground straight. And then after that, like an afterthought, oh yeah, we got to bend the tree. We want it to come out of the ground, go in as many directions as possible. That's just as many directions as possible. It's my preference, but we definitely want to establish some motion down here close to the bottom, where the where the base of the trunk becomes roots at the nabari. We're also, while we're doing this bend, I want to try to make sure that my bends have a graceful curve to them and don't kink too much. It's not that black pines can't survive the kink. They can. It's at this stage in the game that's not part of the design aesthetic, and I would have done that in about 30 seconds times a table full of trees, probably in the time that it'll take me to do this about 10 more times in this video. Anyway, that's kind of what we got going on here. But that's the motion. That's the motion we just put in the tree. That's a good thing to do this year. Now, we will not be doing any candle cutting on these little baby pines because they're not in a bonsai pot, and because they're not in a bonsai pot, their roots aren't being restricted, and because their roots aren't being restricted, for us to try to do candle cutting as a procedure to make the needle shorter would not be effective. It would have all of this space here in this pot to make all of those roots, and all those roots would be able to store all the extra energy from the would have all that extra energy from the fertilizer and the feed that we're giving it and the water we're giving it and all that good stuff. So all of that combined means that we can't do an effective needle reduction until this guy goes into a bonsai pot. But until then, we can maybe cut the top if we're worried about the tree growing too long, or we can leave the top and call that a sacrifice branch and let it go for a little while. And let's see. Maybe also, if I cut this at a really sharp angle, maybe that'll help us. Oh. That was much better. We came out a lot closer to the base of the trunk here. The first one I did, my wire came up just right along the edge, evident. It started out over here where I put it, but then came up over here right along the wall. I didn't trip, I just kind of pulled it over to the base of the tree, because the point was also in the end to put motion in the tree, so we can pull the tree over to the wire as long as we know that we need to wrap that wire as far down that trunk as possible. Now, I have just uncovered down to the top layer of roots to the nabari. This tree already has a pretty cool looking nabari. So at that point, we've done a pretty good job of establishing how early how far down the trunk the wire started, and it should be easy now to put some really, really good motion in this guy. All the way down there where it comes out of the ground. And looking at those roots, we will be rewarded when we do so. Now, I'm still wiring part of last year's growth, I believe. At some point, if I were wiring stuff and it were like green bean colored green at this part, that would be really risky. Best to just maybe leave yourself a little wire and stop there, because that will snap like a green bean. Pretty much is the analogy I would use. All right, so do that some more. You'll be okay. All right, having seen where the nabari is and how far down, I'm just going to take some time and show you. Go my tree. Okay. So I dumped out the loose substrate. It was probably buried up to about here, and I dumped out the loose substrate. The roots were here, and they are nice looking. I mean, they're showy. At some time in this tree, further along in its stage, it will probably those guys will bark over and be pretty cool looking. So we wrapped our wire this way, which means we're going to be taking our trunk this way. I didn't really think about it. I don't really see any reason to do otherwise, and it's probably just kind of instinctual to me. The tree is already kind of doing that a little on its own. But it wouldn't make sense to put the wire on it this way and then try to bend the tree the opposite way. With every kink, with every turn, we would be unbanding the wire from the trunk that we want it to stay tight to while we carry out our bends. Now, oh yeah. Only thing wrong with that is, as a person who is about to put this back into the tray, it's kind of exceeding its space a little bit, which I might overlook if I thought I had done something super remarkable, but this isn't. Super remarkable can come later. It's going to do something on its own, and that's going to be super remarkable. What was pretty cool though was the solution to what I just did was to make the bend a little tighter. So now this guy has a pretty nice little start to it, and it comes out of the ground moving. Let's go this way. Accentuate that even more. Golly. All right, now we're hanging out again. Oh yeah. So we're not really picking out anything special. I'm just going along. So far, I've just been going along and grabbing them. One on the left, second to the left, third to the left. Kind of like what you're supposed to do when someone hands you something on a plate. Pick the one on the left. I don't know if my I assume that my background music is probably a little louder for the camera because it's in the same room, and then I'm in a different room than the camera is. I'm on the balcony, and the camera is just inside in the living room, just off the balcony. And next to it, a little ways, is the laptop. I can really hear it out here, which makes balancing that. It's always made balancing a little bit of background music and it being way too much background music. That's always proved a little tricky. So what you see me doing is I'm looking at a bunch of needles that I know will all be in the way, and I'm not really so much in a design frame of mind like this is my all special bonsai. I'm more like got the frame of mind that I want to give these trees a really good start, and I don't want to spend I don't want to spend all day doing this because nobody has time for that. I mean, no matter who you are, right? So I could be a person, an apprentice who is doing this part, and then when I'm done with this, I have to go water 1,000 trees. So it's best that I don't just look at these like they're all my next Picasso, but more of what they used to tell boxers: stick and move. Oh, that didn't go. It didn't go that bad either. What I'd said, here's another one that came up right there on the. So I curl these up, and the reason that I curl these up is so that whenever I'm putting motion in the tree, that I'm not doing something freaky underneath the soil here, like slinging a piece of aluminum wire around amongst all those roots. So now that my wire has come up all the way over here, next to the wall of the pot, tell you what, let's see. Yes, I'm cutting these right-handed. Not just dyslexic, but ambidextrous dyslexic. Somebody help me. All right, yeah. So this little wire came up way over here out of the way instead of where I wanted it to. That's okay. I got it bent up here so that it is now stationary. And in the past, I've also seen people poke holes in the side here and just run a wire up through that. Let's uncover this base a little bit until I see what's, move my wire out of the way. I'm going to uncover this base a little bit until I see the substrate around the base of this tree is a little tighter than the last one. Probably because they're like fine roots or something. But I want to see what's going on down there, and I want to put wire around it. So give up your secrets. Oh yeah. This little tree has a bean coming out of the hole. It just did a cool little hook, and what I would say is like what I've seen my Japanese teachers say. We want to incorporate that movement into the song. Okay. This tree had a good movement coming right where I'm constantly right where I'm constantly preaching that we want to put good movement in the tree. This tree, when it just like as a little seed shooting down a spike, that thing curled on its own. So in here in a minute, I'm going to try to play off that and accentuate that even more. Some trees are just special, and you can seed up 1,000 trees, and even if you're just going a mile a minute doing this, you're still going to see that little bit where nature is winking back at you, right? You just see it there for a second as it goes by while you're doing something. Okay. So yeah, and that is, get rid of that. I just found some roots and I was going, oh no, I don't want to mess with these roots because they're cool looking. And then it took me a minute to figure out I weeded the other day, and this is like pulling a tooth. Get out of my tree. This is the base of some clover. I've asked once on video whether or not you could whether or not you could bonsai clover, and the answer is yes. We're doing it. When you pull the top off of clover and the roots go down there and they're still alive, we're just kind of bonsaiing them. Whoa, that's so cool. Uh-oh. I scared it. I scared the crow. Okay. Okay. I'm not dumping out the I'm not dumping out all the soil on this the way it might appear. I'm just taking some of the substrate off the top that is covering up our nabari. Let's see, how do I get out of there? Again, if I were a real bonsai apprentice, I would have already done 40, 50 trees. Easy, I know. But we're giving these guys a really good, at a tenth of that speed, we're giving these guys a really good start. Speaking of good start, I would say that our little foray into Japanese black pines has been very rewarding. Very rewarding. Dump out the soil you're going to dump out now, and you won't have to chop a bar through it. Also, cut the top off the pot now. Yeah. Okay. Okay. We can dump out a little bit more of that. Now we've totally exposed. Not yet. Down into the roots, but I haven't seen any spread on this guy yet. Well, you know what? That's okay. It doesn't have to show all of its cards right now. We're just going to call this, I'm just going to call that, well, I'd like to see some kind of hellaciously cool roots, but I don't. Instead, what I see is some really nice fine roots. Yeah. That's the one. But it's got some nice movement to it already. Good. Ooh. So we managed to come up pretty well right next to the trunk on this one. Oh, hold. Yeah, no, the roots on that clover were really, really fine also. And that's what you get, with perlite, some of the finest roots. Drawbacks. It's hard to tell at a glance whether or not it's wet or dry. It's really white looking in a way that's not really very natural. And also at some point it will turn green. That on the top that gets watered the most will kind of turn green, like a little algae colored. That's on its way. You know, it'll brown up or turn colors soon enough. I don't mind any of that. I wouldn't use it as a top dressing. I'm not sure at what stage I would stop using perlite. I'm got some nice sized terracotta pots over here, and I'm thinking about growing some of our smaller pines out bigger, and I'm for sure not going to be growing them in bigger pots in Akadama or even Boon Mix. For that, I'm gonna go with my big bean bag of perlite, and see just how long. Now, I don't saying I'm gonna have mature bonsai growing in perlite, and if I were at some stage at all concerned about the look of any of my preferred mixtures, well, we're just the top dressing away from doing something about that. It's not that big of a deal. Otherwise, I would go on record as saying my favorite bonsai soil is Boon Mix. Probably closely followed. Just good old perlite. Oh goodness. All right. Considerations when wiring. For instance, things that I'm not thinking about, but if I had one pine tree, if I were doing this to one tree, things that I would be thinking about is I would be looking at the tree, thinking about my design, where I'm going to put the most bend, and wherever I'm going to put the most bend, I would want to be, when I'm repping my wire, make sure that my wire came right there at that place where I'm going to, you know, if I see in my mind's eye, this is the place where I'm going to hook this tree around, I want to make sure and have a line of wire there, like running across the back of the place where I'm about to do that heavy bend. And then when I go to make that bend, I'm going to grab it in that place, and the apex of the direction change of that bend is going to be the place where that wire is laid. If you go above or below that, you're weakening, you're working totally against, you're not using that piece of wire as a brace to help keep you from blowing that stem or that trunk out. It's like kinking a water hose. Instead of the water hose kinking, if you had a piece of wire going around there that wouldn't allow it to do that, then that would be fine. But then if the wire were spaced out a little bit more, you could still mess that up by finding a place to bend that hose in between those spirals. And so when we're bending our trunk, we want to make sure that we've kind of thought about that and tried to put our spirals in such a way that the apex or the direction change of our bend will have a piece of wire bracing that from wanting to blow out. That's just a little bit of a forethought on that. Now, this is an interesting tree. That won't slow me down. This is going to be a special tree already. Yeah. Okay. More about that as it shows itself. Okay. To start off, we'll cut this. I'll cut this our little plastic pot down some to a workable height. Today I'm using my tools. The tools of choice today were mostly, for the most part, not the good china. Today I'm using my stainless steel tools because we're digging in the dirt with them somewhat. Using some really strong, really sturdy, really good scissors, but they're not like mom scissor status. The same with these. If I were going to cut into a pot that had wet soil in it, I would use my stainless steel scissors, not my Japanese steel, black steel scissors. And I have some small needle nose pliers, which I didn't think I would need, so they're kind of hanging out. And I also have my chopstick and some soft nose, needle nose soft pliers. That's what I should have said. Could take that down to a better, more usable height. That is the finest little roots. Okay, yeah, golly. We're just gonna gawk at the roots here. Okay, this little guy has an especially thick trunk for its size because it also has quite a few little branches going. We like what you're doing, little tree. I could already start wiring I could already definitely start wiring some of these branches on this guy. Maybe a full, wow. Boom. Boom, boom. Boom, boom. This guy. Check out this guy. You just go. Hugga. No. Also, this little cleanup that I do just to normally to facilitate a very hasty wiring job. And that's what this, at this stage of the game, you know, we're not setting wire for the cocoa food. We're putting the initial motion in tiny little seedlings. If I really wanted to go 90 to nothing, I would have gone through and cut the tops off of 35 little pots, and then gone through and done this part 35 times, and then I would have stabbed a wire 35 times, and then I would have gone through and started putting motion in all these trees, and they probably would have had very much the same motion, kind of like a mom with a bunch of kids and she knows one haircut. It's called the bowl cut. You just see the kids all lined up holding the bowls. All right, so I've cleaned this back enough to a little more than I needed to, frankly, to work around, but I also just thought, wow, let's show off what we're looking at here. This is pretty cool, little tree. You're doing, heck yeah, we like what you're doing. Okay, I see. I hope that wherever you are, that you are enjoying your time. As far as time, today is our Saturday. I am a lucky girl. I am in retail, and I get weekends off. You don't hear too many people. You don't hear too many people in retail saying that. I appreciate that. I do. I appreciate the part where our little store went, yeah, Saturday's a short day, Sunday's a short day. You're always going to be our regular weekday closer. I love that. I love that about my job. I also like that I know what I'm doing on my job in a way that keeps me kind of humble here. I mean, I can see the difference between, I take some of the same confidence into bonsai that I do in my daily job, but the difference is the stuff that I learn that makes me good that makes me kind of knowledgeable on a hardware store is the stuff that I was born and raised in. So this, I will always be a student of bonsai. I will probably, well, if I live 1,000 years, I will never not be a student of bonsai. As far as I know. All right, come on. Yeah. I hear that wind. This is wind. Using end of my finger as a fulcrum. Get the bend that I want in that. I don't want to let this tree down. It's got such good little motion in it. Why would I want to mess that up with some mediocre motion? Well, this is actually pretty mild compared to what we've done in the past. Y'all seen me, or people have seen, y'all seen me pretzel these guys up like circus animals while we were putting them in bonsai pots. Right now, we're just starting to bring along. Some of our 30 little trees. I should be doing the rest of these. I don't have to do them all right now. All right, let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 2, 4. This is 5. And those first 5. Starting at random, that wasn't those weren't selected beforehand. We got some pretty cool trees out of that. I mean, as starters, they had already done some pretty cool stuff. We had some good motion in a couple of them, and that last one, it grew so many branches. Oh, 5, and it's 5. This will be 6. Yeah, we've gotten some pretty cool motion out of a couple, 3 of those, and then we had a couple that were board straight. But then even one of those that was board straight, we put some really good motion into when all was said and done, and the roots fanned out nicely. So there's been little pluses. Everybody brings something to the table. This guy is so far fairly straight, but I think the Navari on this guy might be pretty cool. Give it up. Where the trunk meets that first spread of roots is what we call our Navari, and that is usually the first place that they say somebody's eye goes. It's when you're looking at a bonsai tree, your eye should go right to the base of that tree, right to the base of that guy. And what we want to see is some fatness there. This ball cypress has some of its fatness underneath here, waiting to show us later. We'll see when that comes. But the one next to it, I've definitely exposed the Navari on that. And because I had to layer their plantings depending on their size of root ball, the best parts of this Navari are under the surface. That's what I'm saying here. A compromise. So look at the middle one. Then I digress. All right, golly. I got to cut this away again to show you what I'm looking at, because it's pretty cool. Also, this tree is a little taller than it looked. Which is okay. That's all right. It can be leggy. I've found being leggy to be just advantageous. there were times that I didn't like it. But, we pretty much embrace our Patricia now. I'm wanting to take less chances with her. Alright. Wow. Alright, I'm not seeing, yeah, I'm seeing some. There we go. Took a minute to see. A lot of escape routes on this guy too, and that's what we ended up with. By the time I uncovered where the roots start fanning out, I'm not seeing anything. Oh, there's some. There's some. More to come. I believe in new. I want to call this our last one for this show. Ooh, perfect. I figured out how to do these, and I figured this out before. This is not the first time we've done any shows. Got that to come up right where I wanted it to. For the secret for me to do this, and if you were doing videos on pine trees and trying to do this, cut the top of the pot away first, dig away all that extra soil that you're going to have to dig away when you get to the part of the show where you're showing off the nabari, so might as well pull all that stuff out of your way. And then you're not having to poke a wire through it. It is in the high 60s. Couldn't ask for sweeter stuff. I mean, it's just absolutely. All right, so I'm looking right here at the base, and I'm going, we got to get freaky right there and put some good motion in this tree to get it started right. So I'm picking a spot where I want the main direction change of this bend to be, and I'm picking it, I'm looking right here at this wire where it crosses, putting the force so that is where that little piece of wire just totally reinforced that hard bend I just made in the tree. And all of these bends that I'm making right now with this wire, the end result is a couple of things. One, the tree will squeeze out really fat in between these strands of wire. And two, it will back bud like crazy. And yeah, so some of what you think is just like, how did they do that? They didn't. You just do some cool stuff, and some other cool stuff happens because of it. And that is our six, and probably I'm gonna guess right at 30 minutes ish. Sorry. Japanese black pines that we started from seed. They have some really good motion. We put that in them down low where the roots met the trunk, the nabari part. We also discovered some of these guys have some really cool branching. If I wanted to, I could go back and put some really tiny fine wires on them. But as for right now, we have time to let those go. Their bar branches also, I'll let them get a little bit bigger before we decide who is going to be a future gen and who gets cut. But this was a cool moment of discovery too. We went in and put the motion in these 6 trees and got them all off to a really good start. And some of them showed us that they were doing some pretty cool stuff on their own without us. So that's always a really cool plus. Now, a little bit of substrate here. I'm wearing some of it, and I would have no problem personally reusing that for other little Japanese black pines. Like and subscribe if you guys haven't already. Our next drop will be Manana when we set up and do this again. And I appreciate you, Frida appreciates you, and thank you all so very much for watching. Can you get out of here? Oh my God, look at that. I know. The dirtiest little kid in the playground. Okay. Woo, look at that, we're still shooting.